Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our studio. We are now calling it the Embassy.
The Embassy, yes. I like it.
Welcome back to another episode of Smoke Sessions. We have the Sultan of Science, Muhsin Yesilada, and Crypto V in the house. Those are our stage names. Those are not our real names, but feel free to use them in the street if you ever meet us.
That was really moist.
Why?
I don't know why.
Okay, we'll fix it. Don't worry.
Watch this. Ready? This is how you start a podcast.
Go on.
Hi. Today we're going to talk about things, and you may or may not want to listen. I'm going to talk really far away from the microphone and whisper for your auditory experience. And we're going to have a really good time. Or are we?
Sometimes I question if you're sane or not.
I'm not.
Should we put you in an asylum?
No, let's not, Viraj.
See? Oh, it's getting a little hot in here, man. Baldness is...
Whoa, we got Bald Viraj on the podcast today.
Bald V on the podcast, mate.
Jeez, this comes with an extra level of philosophy.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, because it lets all the knowledge.
We're having a serious conversation today.
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know. You came up with the topics.
So we wanted to talk about your erectile dysfunction, right?
No, that was yours, I thought.
No. Mine works.
You sure?
Yeah, like a champion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure you don't need any of that Viagra? Nothing?
No, not yet. We all do, though. And it's going to be a very sad day when we start needing to use that.
Would you ever take Viagra?
Yeah, of course.
What are the side effects of Viagra?
A big willy.
Aside that.
I don't know. But we're all going to have to use it eventually. That's the sad reality of life. It's a very sad reality of life.
I don't know. I'm going to cross that bridge whenever I get to it.
When you get older, would you take testosterone replacement therapy?
We talked about this. Yeah, I think I'd try it.
Yeah. I'll try it.
But if it's going to cost an arm and a leg and I can't afford it, then no.
Sometimes I have really illogical thoughts, yeah? Like I saw a video of Sylvester Stallone working out and I said, when I'm 70, I'm going to look like that. And then in my head I was thinking, I'm 25 and I don't even look like that.
Exactly.
So I'm definitely not going to look like that at 70, am I? When he was 25, he looked amazing.
Was he doing Rambo when he was 25? Was he older?
He was broke when he was 25.
Ah, okay.
Which is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and now he's just sold his $150 million estate in Beverly Hills, in Hidden Hills, to Adele for $50 million.
Don't you find it mad, right? That some people just write themselves off because they might be like 28 or something, or 30, and they haven't achieved what they wanted to. When you realize
people say when they turn 21 and go, "I'm old now," what the fuck is wrong with you?
You're not. Like, you're not. You're so young. You don't know anything. You know what's interesting, right? At every age you get to a certain age and you think you've got it worked out, and then another 4 years passes and you realize, oh my god, I was an idiot back then. When
I wanted to be an adult, that phrase, I genuinely thought I would have had my life figured out, and that adults knew what to do. You get to this age, you get to 24, 25, you get to 35, you get to 50, and you realize that actually no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just get very good at making other people believe they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
You just got to be 30 seconds ahead of the next person.
Yeah.
And they think you're God.
Exactly.
And it's all smoke and mirrors. Everyone is just smoke and mirrors. You just got to get very good at looking through it and understanding the poker faces of people.
When I started uni, I was like, I'm an adult now. I've got this worked out. And now
I had no idea.
I'm 6 years removed from my first year of uni, and I'm like, I had no clue what I was doing back
So
then.
what were you supposed to be doing? Were you always going to be doing a degree?
I don't know, really. I was just kind of doing it.
A PhD, not a degree.
No.
You thought you'd be working?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to do a PhD. That was never in the plan. It just kind of snowballed.
It's a big ass snowball.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
What, after doing psychology? What, you're going to do an law conversion course?
Yeah.
You couldn't do. I'm sorry, but you could. I don't think you could have done law.
I'd be a terrible lawyer.
It's not that you would have been a terrible lawyer. I think whatever you put your mind to, you're good at. But I just don't think you would. You would have just burnt yourself out. There's a whole pool of creativity in you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have enjoyed it.
Nah, you would have been cracking jokes in like mergers and acquisition talks.
I only wanted to do it because I thought I wanted to be a corporate lawyer because I knew a corporate lawyer, an older family member, and I thought, well, that pays well.
Yeah.
So I'll just do that. It's a terrible reason to want to do a job because it pays well.
I liked it because I liked the idea of law because it was part of that like golden triangle of doctor, lawyer, banker,
Yes.
and they just sound good.
Yeah, because you're Indian.
Yeah, partly that.
When you're from our cultures, so if you're from like an Indian or Muslim background, whatever, right? There's a pressure to go into these kind of things. It's like how many lives are ruined because people just followed the parental and family pressures.
Tons. People just get dentistry degrees or become dentists or become lawyers just to suck up to their parents.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might be proving something to yourself if when you go on that journey of getting that degree, becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor. But are you doing it at the cost of your own mental health?
And you probably are. Because those jobs are way too hard to do it half-heartedly. Way too hard.
If you wanted to get a degree, there are easier ways of getting a degree and having that statement of, I know how to learn,
Yeah.
than going and doing and becoming a doctor for 8 years.
I picked A-levels not because I knew they were easy.
I did not. I picked A-levels based on what I thought I was going to do at uni.
Yeah, my thought was, right, I don't need to do all these hard subjects to do psychology, so why would I do them? It made no sense to me. There was a slight pressure to do it because, well, I did do it. So my first year of A-levels, I picked physics, maths, English, and psychology, right? And I picked physics and maths because I wanted to prove a point that I could do those subjects, and I thought it'd look good on my CV. When in reality, when you get older, it doesn't really matter. Just do what you enjoy, and you'll be good at it. But I picked them anyway, and then I dropped both of them.
You can learn. You can learn if you've got the time. You can learn all of that stuff outside of school. You want to learn about string theory and stars and quarks. And I did A-level AS physics. Got a terrible grade. Got a C. And I look back on it now and I think, yeah, I could have done all of that outside of my degree. Doesn't need to be in it. Didn't need to have done it. Could have saved myself a lot of hassle. Stuck with 3 or stuck with 4 that I genuinely enjoyed and had a more enjoyable experience.
Some people, right? Like Floyd Mayweather, for example, yeah? Floyd Mayweather didn't bother in school because he knew damn well what he was going to do. So he just leaned into the boxing. It sounds risky, but if you know you're that good, if you have that belief in yourself, it's really not a risk. It's quite logical to lean into it.
When you figure out what you're good at, lean into it.
Yeah.
We figured out that we're good at doing live events and you're good at doing comedy and I'm good at managing and organizing and building my own content. So lean into that. What's the point? That's why I'm putting out or trying to at this moment in time a video a day. I've got time on my hands. What am I going to do? Sit on my ass and just apply for jobs? Well, I'm going to make use of that time. Build this living CV, share knowledge, try and build a following of people and not following, a community of people, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Do you think now that because there's so many unconventional career options because of social media and stuff, kids are going to care less and less about school and university?
Yeah, 100%.
I think so.
100%.
Because now you can be 13 and a multimillionaire.
Yep.
Online, and there are kids. They're rare, but there most certainly are versions.
I think there's more than we even realize.
Yeah. It's like now kids who are now professional gamers who are making millions. I bet when who are about our age, right? I bet their parents thought it was a complete waste of time, the amount of time they were dedicating to games, because they obviously didn't have the bandwidth to realize how profitable it can be in a few years' time.
Yeah. Because no one really saw the business model, the macro view of it all, and just go, yeah, I didn't realize. I genuinely thought gaming was a waste of time. And then the model of this esports comes out, and you're like, actually, it's a sport. Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah, you got to be brave enough to make those calls though, because sometimes your parents aren't going to see that. Like for example, now there's going to be kids who might say, "Mum, Dad, I don't really care about school. I'm going to start a podcast in the metaverse," and they're going to be like, "You're going to do what? Where? What? You're going to do a virtual reality? What? You're going to do what?" They're not going to get it.
We were talking about something like this yesterday on our live stream on 2 Beards, 1 Bitcoin.
Oh, yes.
And we were talking about the metaverse and doing things inside of it, and what businesses would do, or what people would start doing in like concerts
Yeah.
inside of these spaces, and inside of these metaverses, like Decentraland and Sandbox and Fortnite potentially. And like you can think of such insane things to do. It's just a matter of building a team that can do that. Like it's less about what you know. I think sometimes a lot of it is about what and who you're networked with. Do you have a team of engineers that can build a product? Do you have an organizer, an ops person? Do you have someone that can deal with finance? And it's like if you can bring that community of people together, that small team together, well, you've got a good chance of putting something out there and seeing where
Yeah.
it's going. And then someone that is more knowledgeable than you is going to come in and go, this is what you can do better. You take their advice, you put it in, and you keep rolling with that.
Mate, the metaverse is gonna get wild. Just wait until Jake Paul announces that he's fighting a virtual reality version of Muhammad Ali in the
Well,
metaverse. Just wait.
Well, we can take one step back from that. I don't know if you saw, but last night the Brooklyn Nets basically had, I think they called it a metaverse game or something like that.
Oh my god.
And what was happening was there's 300 cameras that are run through a Canon 3D program in real time.
Yeah.
That basically you can see at any angle what these guys are, how these guys are playing live.
You can do that now. You could
They're
have done that a
replays.
few years ago.
No, they're replays. This is happening in real time.
Oh,
So you can spin the cameras and get a completely different shot of
like you're
Kevin-
there. So you could be like turning your head
yeah.
and you're watching the game like you're in the arena.
So you know 2K. You know when you play when you play a game in 2K, you can view it from any angle. So you can track onto a player. You can do that in this metaverse in the Brooklyn arena, which is the first game that they've done it in. It's like it's not great. You can see where they're breaking out of its coded environment. But I quite like the idea. It's like I want to see a Kevin Durant. I want to feel what it's like for Kevin Durant to dunk on me in real time. Well, I can track onto, I don't know, Giannis, for instance, track onto his player. And then when Giannis turns his head, I'm looking up at KD.
That's so confusing, but so wild at the same time.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you get a shot from the back of the stand, zoom in, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. You know what's mad, right? Everyone thinks they're progressive. So, for example, our grandparents' generation, they might think that it's... Here, take it. Yeah, so everyone thinks they're progressive. So our grandparents' generation, they might think that it's not a good thing to marry outside your religion, or for a man to marry a man, or for a woman to marry a woman, right? And we think that's crazy, we think they're backwards. But in 40, 50 years' time, our grandchild will be like, Mum, Dad, meet my AI boyfriend. And we're going to be like, you're doing what? And they're going to be like, how could you say that?
I find that odd. I think we mentioned it like a couple episodes ago, this would you let your kids marry a robot or something like that?
Yeah.
You're talking about your nephews.
Would you let your kids marry a robot one day?
That's kind of fucked.
Yeah, but that might happen one day.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah, and they're gonna think you're backwards.
Yeah,
they're gonna think you're like racist. It's gonna be a new kind of racism, isn't it, or prejudice?
If that robot or this machine is intelligent, i.e., it's like level 5 AI,
yeah,
autonomous, it thinks for itself, no problem. If it doesn't, I find that weird because it's like being in love with a laptop.
You know why we shouldn't be worried about AI just yet, right? So people say, oh, AI is going to get to a point where these robots are going to take over the world. That's if we teach them to have desire.
Is that the behavior?
Yeah,
that they have to latch onto.
If they have desire, then they may have the will to try and take over the world and attack us. But without that programming, without learning how to program desire, they'll have no will or concern to do that. They will just follow instructions, which is mad.
Is it desire or is it parameters? No, it is desire, because if it thinks for itself, it's desire. But we've got to teach it to be autonomous, but within the confines of what we consider right and wrong, of what society considers right and wrong. Because if you give it a clean slate, you basically have Ultron.
What's Ultron?
from the Marvel. He was built in good faith of, I want a suit of armor around the world. I want to protect the human race, right?
Right.
But it wasn't. There was no parameters set in it that humans are good.
Mm.
If humans are the things that were killing the world and destroying everything, so Ultron was like, well, I need to eradicate humanity. And that extends to, with the later episodes of What If, into he needs to destroy the whole universe like Thanos.
Worst comes to worst, you just throw some water over it or pull the plug out. Then you're safe.
I think it builds in safety mechanisms and just throwing water over it.
So your daughter brings home its AI boyfriend,
Okay.
right? How are you reacting? Are you even entertaining it, or are you kicking the AI out?
Nah, I'll entertain it.
Nice to meet you. Your data seems great.
Well, it's not R2D2. It's not C3PO.
I don't know what it's gonna be like. Oh, that would be the equivalent if your daughter has an AI boyfriend, right? And he comes around and you start making a robot voice like that. Nice to meet you. Your data seems great. That's the equivalent of putting on an Asian accent when you're talking to a South Asian person. It'd be
Yes.
offensive.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
offensive.
it'd be like, what are you
But
doing?
would it know it's offensive? Has it
I
learned
don't
that?
know. But your daughter would be mad. Oh, what a weird thought. But it might happen.
People are going to have full-on relationships with avatars inside of this thing.
Yes, they are. They are.
How weird is that? It's not going to be over. It's not going to be over text. It's not going to be like that anymore. It's going to be avatars. You can physically feel the person, touch the person. Imagine having sex in the metaverse.
Wait, how do you physically feel them, though? I don't
Well,
understand.
when you get the hardware, like the gloves and the
What?
body, they've already got that stuff out there. It's receptors, it's haptic feedback, like you get in the watches and the phones.
Are people going to be bothered to just wear that all the time, though?
When someone like Boohoo does that, and it becomes that easy, then yeah, people
Or
would wear it.
people start chipping themselves, so it just connects to their neural network. That's something Elon would want to do.
Elon is doing that with the brain.
Yeah, neural
Neural
link, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Neuralink. That's the
Yeah.
one. You put it inside of monkeys.
Yeah. I learned about neural networks the other day, but that's a bit. We don't need to talk about that.
You sure? We can talk about them. Isn't
No,
it?
no.
Is
no
that-
one's gonna care.
It's not entertaining enough.
No, it's really not entertaining. It's
Come
really.
on, make it entertaining.
Doesn't.
What's a neural network?
So neural network in programming basically gives a computer multiple options to go down in terms of processing to make several different complex decisions rather than just A therefore equals B. It can essentially allows the program to think more on its feet.
So do you know who does that at the moment?
So
Tesla's autopilot.
yeah, yes.
Tesla's autopilot is constantly going through iterations of its neural network design
Mhm.
and the infrastructure. And what most people don't know is that a lot of the time when an update comes out for the new Teslas, they've actually re-architected the whole thing. So it's not just a small upgrade. They've torn it down and they've rebuilt it. And imagine he's doing this in like years. This has taken people decades.
Yeah.
This has taken other companies decades to catch up. I find it insane. But the wild thing is that is a neural network supposed to look like the brain in its thought processes, in the way it makes decisions, or is there a better way of doing it?
They can't really replicate the brain right now. If they could replicate, so if Elon could develop a system that replicates the complexity of the brain, he could essentially do what he wants with these machines. But that's incredibly difficult. A lot of these neural networks are based on 3 layers right now, just 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are those 3?
I can't remember the names of them, but there's 3 layers to those networks, right? 3 core layers. The brain is way more than 3. It's within the millions, billions of maybe even trillions of connections in the brain, right? If he could replicate that, then a car could have absolute autonomy and can be absolutely independent of decisions, and even potentially give you better ideas on where to go. So your car would be like, you tell your car to go to McDonald's, let's go to Burger King today. Your car could probably do that, which would be mental.
That would be quite cool.
But I don't think they can do that just
No, I
yet.
don't think it can do it yet. It's got to ask for yes or no's. Because at the end of the day, coding is like ones and zeros.
The difference between, I think we spoke about this once before. The difference between machine learning, right, and bog standard code that you might learn to write in high school or in university,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like the core principles of coding is when you're learning to code. Learning code is like having a really smart friend, but takes everything literally. It's like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Right? It's extremely intelligent, but you give it something ever so slightly ambiguous and it loses the plot, it doesn't work.
Yep.
Whereas machine learning is far more sophisticated than that and can read between the lines and improve itself based on the information you're giving it.
But you've got to tell it that this is right.
You have to train it.
Yes, yeah, you have to train it.
You
It
give
does it
it-
out
yeah.
the box. It's not a plug and play system. You don't take it out, plug it in, and it goes, I know how to do that. Thanks. You've got to teach it with millions of interactions,
Yeah.
which is what they do with, which is why all the testers communicate with each other.
Yeah. So a lot of these social media algorithms based on machine learning, they're learning as they go along. The more we use it, the more sophisticated they get.
I think one of the best probably that we use on a daily basis is TikToks.
Mhm.
TikToks, I don't know if it is a machine learning algorithm, but it's probably the closest thing to one that I know.
Yeah, it
Or
is.
we interact with.
It
Because
is.
I have genuinely thought things.
Of course, it's a machine learning algorithm. Of course, it is.
Oh, because it spends and then it feeds you it and that tells it whether it's I have thought about Suits, the TV show, and I've been thinking about it and like I'll spend a little bit of time on a Suits TikTok, just a clip from the show, and my For You page will just be filled with
Yeah.
Suits stuff.
Yeah. People say, oh, my phone's listening to me. Your phone most certainly isn't listening to you, right? That would be actually counterproductive for them to do. So for them to develop an algorithm that gives you suggestions based on what you're saying is actually counterproductive. They're far better suited by looking at your clicking behavior because it's far more objective than what you say. What you say, the computer system, the algorithm can misconstrue, and it will take far more development programming to get the right answer for you.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
I don't agree with the point that it doesn't listen to you. I think it does, but they use that for ads.
It doesn't listen to you. It
then
doesn't.
then why when I go onto like a Facebook page or I
Yeah.
go onto Google, right? It's there. There's an ad for a toaster.
Because it's
You say it enough and it's like toaster, toaster, toaster.
no,
toaster.
it doesn't happen like that, right?
Oh, come
That's a
on.
myth that goes around. It doesn't listen to you. Basically, it's called predictive modeling, right?
So how does it know I'm looking for a toaster?
It's a basic.
So
So
if I've not looked it up,
but they're not just so. It's looking at other things that you look at, right? So a toaster is quite an ambiguous thing, right? But let's use a more easy, straightforward example to follow. Let's say you watch loads of videos on sports on
Yeah.
YouTube, yeah? And then you're on another Google system, which by the way is all connected because you're signed in via your Gmail,
yes,
right? And then you're on Google and then you get an ad for goalpost. But because you're so into football, chances are during the day you spoke about football with your mates.
okay, I agree with that.
Do you see
I
what I'm
agree-
saying?
I agree with that. I agree with that. The ambiguous ones throw me off.
The ambiguous ones are just the probability of truly large numbers.
Do you think the NSA listens to American citizens?
They've been caught doing that and they're not supposed to.
So it's like, I don't know how it works in the UK. I don't know if MI5.
Well, the National Security Agency and a social media company can operate under very different rules, well, they should do anyway.
Mm.
But so one of the explanations as to why sometimes you were talking about toasters and then a toaster pops up on your feed is down to the probability of truly large numbers. You use your phone enough, you speak about things enough, where eventually those two things are going to coincide. So you'd happen to be talking about toasters, and then a toaster will pop up eventually. It's a probability of truly large numbers. If you do two things, which is like just speaking in your daily life and using the internet enough, eventually, coincidentally, it's going to come up.
Probability of large numbers.
Yep, it's going to happen eventually.
I feel like I forget you're intellectual sometimes. I feel like you're intellectual. I forget you're intellectual sometimes.
But it is freaky. It is freaky.
It throws you off, right?
And also, it's based on proximity as well. So your algorithm isn't just based on your interests, it's also based on the interests of the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're let's say you live in a community of lots of, I don't know, Muslim people, right? Chances are you're going to get some Muslim related content on your thing. So, for example, if you're in, okay, an even better example, let's say you live in India, chances are it's going to recommend you quite a few Indian TikTokers.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. It's also going to feed what the people around you are consuming.
Yeah.
Because they know the people around you in that country are consuming a certain type of content or certain type of thing. They're going to push more of that because they know it's good.
Bit of a sidetrack, but actually it's not. There are some people, so you know when people say, oh, these people just know how to manage social media, right? Really and truly,
Who?
just like people who are very successful on social media. So
Right.
successful YouTubers, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, so forth, right? So people say, oh, these people just know how to manage social media, right? But it's not because they have inside information on how these algorithms work, because these social media companies don't make that publicly available.
Mhm.
It's just they've been doing it for long enough where they have intuitions on what works.
It's trends.
Yes.
They're just very good at predicting trends. I think Logan Paul and Jake Paul, if we take that, or we take the Sidemen, or we take Full Send, for example, or we take some educated TikTokers like Ali Abdal, Thomas Frank, they've been doing it for so long and consistently that the amount of videos that they've produced, they've realized what the community of people that they've attracted want. And so they put out content and it goes viral. It does well, it does a million hits or does a million views. That isn't because they have inside information. It's because they've leveraged the interest of their community.
Yeah. And they have, whether they realize it or not, an understanding of human behavior and what captivates attention.
Yes.
It's
And
like,
then at that point, they go and outsource. Well, they don't outsource. They build a team, and that team of people goes and researches ideas, brings it back to them that they can then veto. So they take that thinking away and outsource it to people that are more intellectual about that subject.
yeah, it's like saying something shocking at the top of a TikTok video just to get someone's attention. So you could say something like, so I got stuck in an oven the other day.
It's like,
What? What? First 2 seconds, I'm in.
I'm gonna clip that up.
I'm in. And then suddenly I'm talking about, I didn't actually get stuck in an oven, but it was clickbait. It just caught your attention.
There's a really good example of that. I was watching TikTok and there's this kid that does these challenges or stuff like that, random things. And he was like, it opened the TikTok with, I took a girl on a date to Iceland or like Antarctica. And I was like, what
You're in.
the hell is
Yeah.
going on? And it's like jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. Something happens every 2 seconds. You learn how to hold attention. And if you can do that, you can feed anyone anything.
Yeah. You know, in China, so they don't have TikTok in China, but they have their own version of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's government controlled. So people have to be off it on 10 p.m. and they regulate the content that especially children can see, and it has to be patriotic and educational content.
What do you think of that?
I think when the government get involved in what the public can consume as part of their media diet, it can be quite dangerous at times. I think that the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Does that take away free speech, do you think?
Yes, it does. So I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I don't think they should completely regulate what people can and can't see. But I do think these social media companies can do a better job at pushing worthy content to young people that's going to add value to their lives.
Well, YouTube has the kids thing. The kids setting.
Yeah, they do. But even that, right, so there's been a few studies on YouTube Kids
Yeah.
and the algorithms there, and again, they don't make it publicly available. So the YouTube Kids algorithm is even more hush hush than the normal algorithm for recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably for some sort of legal reasons. I'm not sure. But these social media companies,
Spicy.
these social media companies need to make their algorithms publicly available so people can scrutinize them. So Facebook, right, especially, they do all this naughty stuff and no one can go in and scrutinize it.
You really have a bone to pick with Facebook, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I think they're a very dangerous company.
At any point in your life, did you think they weren't a dangerous company?
Social media companies should never launch a cryptocurrency,
Why?
because if they do, they are now basically a country. Think about it. If a social media company has 2 billion users, 1 billion users, whatever, they also have a cryptocurrency. Tell me how they differentiate from a nation. In the metaverse, they're a nation. They have rules, they have laws, make money on it, and they have their own currency.
Where's the tax?
They have a culture.
Tax is taken off in ads and transactions. Yeah.
They are a nation.
I could agree with that. That is a very astute observation. I like that.
Clip.
I like that. I like that. That is smart. I've never thought to make that jump.
Yeah. They're basically countries.
I did think the other day, and it was in one of my videos, I was talking about...
What's the capital city of TikTok? Wherever that kid who just reacts to things, who never speaks, is. He's like the mayor.
President.
Yeah, he's the president.
Yeah.
There's moderators who go on there. They're the police.
I never made that jump. That's a nice little jump you made there.
Sometimes I say things and I'm like, good boy, Muhsin.
That was a smart one.
Thank you.
I did think the other day, like I was saying it, I was thinking about how these things would be governed, about who owns them, but if they're decentralized and basically the users own the platform, owned that particular metaverse, what happens? Who governs those rules? How do you get out bad actors and stuff like that? But if it's a controlled one, like Facebook's will be, then yeah, it's basically a nation.
Yeah.
Facebook's what 2 billion users?
Probably, yeah. Not all real.
Yes, not all real.
Probably more like a billion.
But there's a person behind that account.
I mean, there's a country, a nation, or an organization that's putting out. There's whole troll farms. Do you know about troll farms?
What troll farms?
Troll farms are dedicated factories with computers and sometimes even people who are just there designed to troll people.
What?
So there are computer algorithms, right, in massive factories that are put together to make fake accounts to go online to troll people. And it's used for manipulation. Some people just do it because they're bad actors. To do it to motivate and distort elections. There are whole troll farms. You know how like you can have like a cryptocurrency farming village?
Yeah.
What do you call those?
Mining.
Yeah, a mining village, whatever you want to call them. There's whole troll farms out there full of computers that are designed to create fake accounts and to message people. And
how does it get around the I am a human?
I'm sure they have their ways.
Because that capture's got really good over the last couple of years.
You gotta understand, just like drug cheating in sports, these people who want to cheat the system, they also grow as the social media companies grow as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sometimes faster, which is worrying.
I like it when you're intellectual. I like intellectual missing. They can't see.
That's okay.
It's a lovely movie.
That's okay. Isn't TikTok an Asian company?
Yeah, it's Chinese. It's owned by a Chinese entity. That's why India outlawed it. You know, India has its own TikTok version of TikTok. 35 million users. It's not as big as...
It only has 35 million users?
Yes. After it banned TikTok late last year.
Why did it ban TikTok? Misinformation or something?
There are two reasons. There is the reason that India says, and there is the actual reason. The reason that India says is probably due to data and privacy, because it's a Chinese organization. I feel it's because India and the Indian government have this thing about things being Indian owned.
Right.
So they try and control and keep all of the data inside of India.
Right.
So I think it's because they want an Indian platform to do well in India so that they don't have to sell the data abroad and these other countries manipulate Indian individuals.
Interesting.
Which isn't for the good of the nation, it's for the good of the government.
Were you in India during the mob lynchings due to WhatsApp misinformation?
Yes.
What was that about exactly? What were they saying? What was it saying about COVID?
This stuff was happening on a daily basis. Like it's for a whole bunch of different things. There was a lady that didn't get caught that basically she got burned alive.
Because of misinformation?
Not misinformation, because of people talking about it inside of WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And spreading this information through broadcast and different things, which led to a mob attacking her, of men attacking her.
They had to limit the number of times something could be forwarded because of this, right?
which doesn't work in the UK but works in India.
Interesting.
I don't actually think it works in India because you get these forwarded messages that are like 100 people deep.
Really?
It's crazy.
And you got them?
I got forwarded messages from people, but they did do the misinformation thing about COVID on WhatsApp in India.
And I'm sure it led to loads of people getting seriously hurt. Misinformation can really kill, man.
Do you think misinformation is a human right, or not a human right? Do you think misinformation is something that should be on the Declaration of Human Rights and us preventing it? Because if freedom of speech is on there, that's a tough question. I don't usually stump you.
Okay. I think it's when dealing with misinformation, and if someone does something, spreads a piece of misinformation that has extremely adverse consequences for society, and it reached a lot of people, and their intentions were clear, they were bad actors, that should be absolutely criminalized.
Okay.
However, Jane from down the road, who heard from Karen in the office that this particular remedy stops COVID, and she shares it amongst a couple of friends, that can't be criminalized. That's just naivety.
So how do you tell the difference?
I think about...
Is there a scoring system?
Reach, an assessment of the intentions, however you do that, and its consequences.
So it's based on the consequences of what you're spreading, that and that should be in a tiered structure.
Yeah, so for example, if you're someone with...
But then how are you saying that Jane spreading this remedy, which, I don't know, which cures bruises, is different to the actual medicinal cure, not cure for bruises, but actually, you know, prevents bruising or slows and increases the healing process for bruising that is approved by the FDA? Like, how are you able to say that one is better than another? Because one might be based on, I don't know, Ayurveda, for instance, which isn't FDA approved, but the FDA might approve Savlon, for instance. They don't, but the FDA might approve another medicine that does say that.
Okay, let me ask an easier question. If Jane tells Karen to drink bleach because it might cure her illness, and then Karen dies, should Jane be viable for criminal charges?
Isn't that manslaughter?
I guess it would be. I'm not sure.
But you could argue that in court to say that it was just an opinion.
So that would be an assessment of its consequences. And also intention.
Tough argument.
Yeah. Shisha me.
I just got this.
It's tough, innit?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I do a PhD and I can't actually answer that straight away. It's hard, right? Because there's a lot of talk about freedom of speech, but what about people's right to hear accurate speech and not be lied to?
Do you think that is a luxury?
To not be lied to?
No. Do you think that people's access to proper information, non-misinformation, is a luxury, or should that be a necessity?
Should be an absolute necessity.
Basic human right.
Yeah, it should be. Yes.
But isn't it because we now have access to technology that the spread of misinformation is greater than it was 50 years ago?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Some misinformation at times spreads faster than accurate information because it's more effective.
So we're in the same position with crypto right now, right? The governments are building the tax laws around, you know, capital gains on crypto as this domain is evolving, because it's only 13 years in. That is exactly the same as what happened with technology and the internet. They were building the laws about what was right and what was wrong on it as they're going along.
Right.
because you need precedent of things to happen to be brought to a court of law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm going off the information that I've got, but my assumption is you need precedent to be able to make decisions that can then be enacted in law.
And we know from history that governments are generally rubbish whenever they get into any kind of business.
Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're good. A lot of the time they're not great.
Name me things that the government regulates highly, industries that the government regulates, well, controls, that works out.
In times of war,
Right.
it works great. So when I was working at Public Health England, I understood the need for the structured approach that they took to dealing with COVID. I understood why those systems were in place, right? For if we have a pandemic again, we should have learnt from this one.
Yeah.
And be able to look at the next one and go in the next 100 years and go, okay, there's a framework for this. We know how to deal on a framework level. We know how to implement this stuff. We should learn from our mistakes and move forward. However, most of the time, when governments decentralize things and you lose big government, things do better. Take, for instance, the financial sector of Europe. London was that. London built a hub because we laxed the laws. However, because they laxed the laws on financial services to get the industry kickstarted, we ended up, well, this isn't, I'm not making a jump, but we possibly ended up in the 2008 crisis because banks just went too far with it.
So you made the point about government learning lessons from COVID. So
Yeah.
if it happens again in 100 years, we'll do better. There's an interesting example of this, right?
Go on.
So after the Spanish flu,
Yeah.
so around, I think the paper came out in 1915, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a paper that came out by a guy called Soper, right?
Okay.
And it was titled Lessons Learned from the Spanish Flu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's all about behavioral insights, about government interventions, how people responded, misinformation to a certain extent. And if you read that paper, Viraj, it's chilling because you know what conclusion you come to?
What?
We have learned nothing.
Really?
Not a thing.
Was it a
There were-
government paper or was it an individual?
It was by an individual, a
Okay.
researcher, and you read it and you go, "Wow, we are making history is repeating itself." Because after the Spanish flu, right? During the Spanish flu, I think it was the Jewish community people from the Jewish community and doctors were attacked by people because they thought it was part of a wider plan to kill off people, and they thought it was the Jewish people who were doing it and doctors,
What?
right? And it's chilling because we see these things happen today. How misinformation about these things can lead to polarizations, targeting certain people and demographics. The same things are happening because we haven't learnt those lessons. So it's interesting.
So
you bring
basically,
that up.
everything I just said is absolutely rubbish because we haven't learned.
No, and we probably won't learn.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, that's it. We're screwed then.
Yeah. In 100 years' time, there's going to be another massive pandemic, right? And someone in 100 years is going to read my paper on vaccine misinformation, and they're going to have chills down their spines thinking, wow, we really still haven't learned our lesson. And then they're going to go back another 100 years and read that paper that came out 112 years ago
Yeah.
and go, oh, look, 200 years ago, we still haven't learned our lesson. It's one of the cool things about research because you can track the analysis that people had on their situations throughout the years. It's one of the beautiful things about keeping a literary record.
That
of
is
things.
that is interesting.
If you want to look it up, it's a very interesting read.
I'm
Soper,
gonna-
1915, I believe. I'm probably messing up the date. But it's called Lessons Learned from the Spanish Flu.
Interesting.
Shall I bring it up?
Yeah, go on.
You talk to them and I'll bring it up.
I find that wild. Because you want our governments, you want our society to learn from mistakes, like we learned or we should have learned from 2008. Of let's not give out mortgages to just everyone just to make money. You know, we shouldn't. What else shouldn't we do? I'm sure there's 100,000 things. There's a million things that we shouldn't do. The question is, why haven't they learned? Why haven't people learned that? Well, probably because We are controlled by greed. There is always an agenda. And that agenda is so short-sighted. No one is doing it for a government, and correct me if I'm wrong, a government looks out for the people of that nation, not for humankind. That's what a government does. However, you put those people in power to try and make your life a better place. That life extends to the rest of the world, right? That's why we have a UN council and stuff like that, right?
The pandemic which has swept round the earth has been without precedent. There have been deadly epidemics, but they have been more circumscribed. There have been epidemics almost as widespread, but they have been less deadly. Floods, famine, earthquakes, yet never been for a catastrophe at once, so sudden, so devastating, and so universal. The most astonishing thing about the pandemic was the complete mystery which surrounded it. Nobody seemed to know what the disease was, where it came from, or how to stop it. Anxious minds are inquiring today whether another wave of it will come again. The fact is that although influenza is one of the oldest known of the epidemic diseases, it is the least understood. Science, which by patience and painstaking labor has done much to drive other plagues to the point of extinction thus far, have stood powerless before it. There is doubt about the causative agent and the predisposing aggravating factors.
Are you reading a present day one, or is that 1915?
1915.
What the hell? You changed the word influenza to
COVID,
and it's exactly the same thing.
We got took by surprise again. This was 100 years ago. 1919 this came out.
It's a government conspiracy. 100%.
Amazing. It's kind of amazing.
You
Chilling.
You change one word and it becomes present day.
You replace influenza with COVID.
Yeah.
And it's chilling.
Because our common cold is COVID.
Yes.
And it's one of the least.
It's the flu.
It's the flu, and the flu isn't. And the flu is one of the least understood viruses.
Well, the thing about the flu. So people say, about the vaccine. Oh, we're gonna need vaccines every year for COVID. That's unacceptable, bro. We get different vaccines every year because the strain of it changes.
Do you think your yellow fever is the same as it was 10 years ago? No, probably not.
What people don't understand about vaccines, right? So these conspirators, vaccines are one of the reasons we live so long nowadays.
Yes. Here's a question. Do you think it's good that we're living so long? Do you think it's good that our society has gone from living to 50 to 35 to 55 to now potentially over 80, over 100?
I think so.
Consistently. Why?
I think so. Because I think it gives us more affordances to think freely and to buy our time.
However, do you think the world that we live in is prepared for that?
No. We don't have enough resources for everyone to be living so long. Yeah. You know, I'm going to get the stats on this a little bit wrong, but it's something like this. For everyone to live at the same quality of life as a middle-class person in the United States, we need 2.5 Earths. For everyone in the world to live at that same quality of life.
8 billion people. What is middle class in the United States?
I don't know what it is, but you know, it's the same kind of lifestyle you and I might have, right? For everyone to live around our standard of life, we need 2.5 Earths for natural resources.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And we're burning through our current rate
at
a stupid level.
This is a little soundbite, but it's true. Our greed is at the expense of people around the world.
Yes.
And a lot of people never get their head around that.
But your average human isn't thinking of that. Your human that is living in the US, that is living in the UK, that is living in Europe, that is going about their daily lives. Do you, in your normal day, put a second thought to that?
Well, I'll add another thing. So if our greed, right, is at the expense of billions of people around the world as middle-class individuals in the UK, in a developed country, if that's at the expense of other people in the world, when we do charity, that's not us giving to them, that's just us apologizing. Sorry about that.
Yes, it is.
Sorry about that. Oh, but we're not going to change. Every now and then, I'm just going to donate 20 quid.
So all of these people that are doing these projects in developing countries that are trying to bring people up to the same level as a developed country, do they even know what's going on, do you think? Do you think that they know that their standard of life is going to be improving?
What do you mean?
So you get these missions that go out and try to improve a country's. You get not these missions. You get these individuals. You get these corporations. You get these these companies that go in, that try and go into developing nations and try and help a developing nation alleviate itself out of
Poverty.
out of help rebuild infrastructures, provide advice. Do you think the people of that country actually know what's happening when that starts, or when people do that?
I think so.
You do?
I think so. But I think a lot of these initiatives, it's like putting a
That's not
band-aid.
initiatives.
A lot of these initiatives, it's like putting a band-aid over a leak. It's just going to carry on leaking.
Yeah, because the people in the other place don't change.
No. So we were in Afghanistan, yeah, for 20 odd years.
Yep.
As soon as we ducked out, what happened?
The place fell to shit.
Yeah. Because we weren't dealing with the underlying issues.
No.
We were just constantly defending. It's like you can plaster over a leak in the ceiling as much as you like. If you don't fix the leak, it's just going to get damp again.
Yeah, take your living room.
Yeah, almost instantly. And that's the problem we have.
If you had to change, would you? For the benefit of the other billions of people around the world.
If I had to substantially decrease my standard of living,
yeah,
I think we'd all be lying if we said we'd be happy about it.
Exactly.
To be honest.
It's just everyone. If I was to say yes right now, I would just be saying yes by way of virtue signaling to say that, yeah, I just want, yeah, I do.
You'd be gutted.
I think everyone wants to. Everyone in their head would like a world where that exists.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, are you giving up your fancy house in London to go and live in a smaller place that has less water? The heating can't be on all the time. You can't have hue bulbs and stuff like that. You can't have electricity on all the time. You know, there are cuts. No, you wouldn't give that up.
No. Most people wouldn't. Should people be expected to, though, at the same time?
Well, that comes down to freedom of thought, freedom of speech.
It's been quite a thought-provoking episode.
Mate, you've got a podcast timer now.
What are we on?
52 minutes.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
You've got a podcast timer.
I just know in here. Yeah. Right, should we wrap this one up?
Please.
Thank you for coming, everyone. You've been a delight. 1 Minute Smoke, January 27th. Be there. Tickets still online. Viraj.
We're on all podcasting platforms. Oh, you know what? This isn't a podcast, right? Let's just get this straight. This is a purpose-built show now, right? We've evolved out of a podcast. We are on all the platforms you want us to be on, right? Except for Facebook, because Muhsin doesn't like them. But I'm trying to wean my way in there, right? I'll convince him for the people that aren't on Facebook. But we're on everything: Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. All of that. Smoke sessions. Under the name 1 Minute Smoke, that will be changing. Give it some time. We'll update you when it comes. Have a lovely day and think about what we've discussed today, right? And let us know your thoughts.
Goodbye.